Hi friends, welcome to part 2 of calculated requested receipt date and ship date. In this video, we will try to understand how the configurations with respect to vendor ship calendar and lead time in the release products govern the receipt date and ship date calculations. Make sure that you subscribe to the channel D3 Talks or follow my profile in LinkedIn. With that note, let's quickly jump into today's topic. We'll quickly get into the topic. So we already covered about the basics of what is this requested ship date and receipt date. Probably I'll skip those slides. Make sure that you watch the part 1 before coming into the part 2. And in this video, we will primarily understand how do we configure the lead time, so which primarily governs your ship date and receipt dates. And also we will see how do we configure the vendor calendar and the warehouse calendar. First of all, we need to understand the definition of these calendars, right? So primarily there are three calendars which govern this requested ship date and receipt dates. One is the purchase calendar, the calendar which defines when a vendor is operating. So your vendor is operating on between Monday to Friday, and if the vendor is not operating on Saturdays and Sundays, and that's when the vendor probably accepts your purchase orders and start processing the material. And the vendor can have a ship calendar. Let's say the vendor operates from Monday to Friday, but still the vendor will be able to ship the materials on Saturdays and Sundays, right? So they can have a separate ship calendar. If they operate the same as the purchase calendar, then you assign the same calendar in the ship calendar field also. We discussed about this in the previous video, where we need to assign the purchase calendar and the vendor ship calendar. And also we have the warehouse calendar. This calendar defines when the purchase orders can be received at your site or warehouse. So the possibility for this vendor calendar is like you can define it at the item coverage level. So already we discussed in detail about the item coverage in the master planning series. I'll share the link for the playlist in this video's description. Please do check out the same. And also we can define it in the warehouse, but it's always recommended to define based on the each item level item coverage. Once it is defined in the item coverage, based on the coverage group, each and every coverage group will have a calendar assigned to it. Probably we will quickly check that also in this video. And the purchase and vendor ship calendars are considered when ship date is calculated. So you have because the purchase and vendors are primarily, these two calendars are typically linked to your vendor ship dates, and that's how it governs the ship date whenever it gets calculated in the purchase order lines. And your warehouse calendar, this is basically the item coverage group calendar, is used when the receipt date is calculated. So when also the transport days is considered, but we will not touch upon that in this video. Probably we'll take it up in the next part 3. So in this video we will touch upon how lead time and your vendor ship calendars primarily govern your ship and receipt date, right? So with that note, let's quickly jump into Dynamics 365 screen. So first of all, let me quickly create a purchase order first. Accounts payable, or you can also come from procurement and sourcing module. So the moment when we create a purchase order, by default it takes the current system date. Today's date is 19 June, so it takes the current system date as the requested ship date and receipt date. But as we add the lines based on the configurations what we have in the release products for the respective items, the ship date and receipt dates gets recalculated. So that's what we are going to see. Let me create a new purchase order, and as usual we'll pick the Acme office supplies. That is the first vendor. And then so as you can see here, the requested receipt date is 19, and so that is the current system date. And let me capture any warehouse, and then let me hit the OK button. So this creates a purchase order with the requested receipt date as 19, which means that today itself we are going to receive the material, because we have not yet actually so I'm not sure whether we have enabled the feature. Let me check this first. So I think we have not yet enabled the feature. First of all, we need to go and enable the feature which we have discussed. Procurement and sourcing module. Let me collapse all, setup, procurement and sourcing parameter, and we need to enable this feature, otherwise you will not be able to view the requested and confirmed ship dates, right? So let me save this. Let me go back to the purchase orders, all purchase orders. And yeah, let me open the purchase order. I think this is the one which we created, 150. And let me check the header on the line. So requested ship date and requested receipt date both are available. And let me edit this. And in the delivery section also I can see the requested ship date and receipt dates with confirmed ship date and receipt date, because we have just enabled the parameter. And let's say if I add this item number, and right now you can see that still the ship date and receipt dates are the same. There are no changes with respect to the receipt date and ship date. So but the fact here is we need to add the lead time, right? So that's the first step, which first scenario I would say which we are going to see. So there are various forms where we can add the lead time for the item. So in this case, what we are going to do is, either if you have already seen the master planning playlist, I have clearly mentioned over there that we can also define the lead time for the item in the plan section. If you go to plan section and item coverage, and you have the possibility to define the lead time for the purchase. And of course, you need to provide item coverage for the site and warehouse level, and then provide appropriate lead time for the purchase. And if you want to consider the working days, then the system will consider the working days for the item also. So this is the first place where you can configure. And the second place I would say is primarily if you want to follow the by creating a trade agreements, then in the trade agreements also you have the provision to provide the lead time. Then in that case, for a specific site or warehouse with respect to any purchase order raised for a specific vendor, then you will be able to create a lead time. We have already discussed about the trade agreement, so I'm not touching upon that. And the third place which we are going to see right now is, if you go to the plan and then default order settings. In the default order settings, you have the option to provide the purchase lead time. So let's say if I give the lead time as 6 days, that's the working day. I'm not enabling the working days, let it be disabled, and then let me save this. Let me go back. So here once again what we will do is I will remove this line, then re-add the same item number. Let's see if it is getting calculated. But here, like you can see that so the requested ship date is still 19, but let me add the item number. Right now you can see the ship date is updated to 25/6 because it just added 6 more days to the ship date and just recalculated the value to 25/6, 6 days from today's date. So that's why now the requested ship date is 25/6, because the lead time for producing the material is 6 days. That's what we have just mentioned in the slide, that the lead time is the time that vendor takes to produce the item. So the vendor has not yet shipped the material, right? So let's assume that the vendor has produced the material, but in order to ship the material, we need to assign the ship calendar in the vendor, right? So let me remove this item. Then let me go to the vendor. So this is the vendor account. So we already discussed, like the users can assign the purchase calendar and the ship calendar in the vendor master level. So in the invoice and delivery section, you will have the option to update the ship calendar. Let's say first of all, let me check the working days for any calendar, and then so we have a lead time of 6 days, which means we will be able to receive the material on 25th. So the vendor will be able to ship the material on 25th, right? But what we are going to do is, let's say this is the calendar which we are going to assign 24 hour. So what I will do is, for 25th, which is a Wednesday, I'm going to close that particular day, and for 26th also I'm going to close that particular day, right? Let me save this calendar. So 25 and 26 are closed for vendor, maybe for so and so reasons, because of festival holiday or whatever it could be. So this is the calendar based on which the vendor shipped the material. So let me go back, and then what I'll do is I'll assign this 24 hour calendar. I've just taken the same calendar from the demo data, but only thing is what we did is we just made the dates 25 and 26 as closed. So let me go back. So now what we will do is, once again we will try to add the line, Right now you can see the dates are 19 because we have not yet added the item, but once we add the item, it takes the lead time from the release product which we configured, which is 6 days, plus it will also consider the ship calendar which we have configured in the vendor, right? So let's add the item, and sorry, I think, yeah, it just added. So now we can see the item number, but lead time, still it has considered the lead time, but it has not considered the receipt date for the ship calendar for calculating the ship date, because ideally it should not be on 25th. The vendor is not operating on 25th. Let me check whether I have saved the calendar or not. I hope I saved the calendar. Let's check once. So this is the 24-hour calendar which we are using, and for 25 and 26 actually it is closed. So this is definitely, the system should not pick 25 and 26. It is supposed to give the date as the request to ship date should be supposed to be 27. So let's try this once again. I'll try refreshing the page and then create a new purchase order so that the configurations are correctly picked by the system or not. So we are in the vendor master page. So this is not prepared. Let me navigate to the purchase order page, all purchase orders, and then let me click on new. Let me add the same vendor, Acme Office Supply. So here you can see the current system date which the system has taken, requested ship date and receipt date. Then let me click on OK. So right now in the delivery section we can see that the ship date and receipt date are 19/6, but for when we add the item, let's see, yeah, I think now we are getting it. After refreshing the page, now this seems to be fine, because for the item level we have just configured the lead time as 6 days. So from 19, after adding 6 days, it is 25/6, and 25 and 26 we have just closed the calendar for ship. So vendor will not be able to ship on 25 and 26, so the vendor will be able to ship only on 27th, and then we will be able to receive it on 27th itself. But here once again, like I said, we need to assign the warehouse calendar and the transport days, then based on which the receipt date will be modified, because that has nothing to do with your shipment date with your vendor, right? So that's how this requested ship date is recalculated based on one is let me go back to the slide. So it is recalculated based on the ship date is primarily governed by the lead time, the vendor calendar, the purchase calendar, and the ship calendar. So on which dates the vendor is allowed to ship. Adding to this, now we need to add the transport days. It can be configured based on the mode of delivery also. So once we add the transport days, then the requested receipt date need to be calculated, and this requested receipt date can also be calculated based on your warehouse operating days. That is also something which we will check. Like I said, this requested receipt date currently it is fetching, because we have not configured the transport days or the warehouse calendar. That's the reason it's still taking the same value. So system is assuming that we'll be able to ship and receive on the same day. So ideally that will not be the case. So we need to configure the transport days and the warehouse calendar. So probably we will do that in the next episode, in the part 3. And then probably we will see if we can quickly get into any of the scenarios which will help you to understand this concept much better. So at a high level, what we need to understand is the purchase calendar primarily governs the calendar in which the vendor primarily operates. The ship calendar primarily governs the days on which the vendor will be able to ship the material, and followed by the warehouse calendar, which we will configure in the item coverage group. And once if it is configured in the item coverage group, and a coverage group is assigned to the item, then all the items which have those coverage group will behave on the same operating days. So that is primarily we will cover in the next video. Make sure that you subscribe to the channel D365 Talks, or follow my profile in LinkedIn. See you soon in the part 3 of calculated requested ship date and receipt dates. Thank you.